Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the stars through the main screen. The year was 2387, and humans had been part of the big galactic family for 50 years now. Jake thought those years went by fast, but today felt different. Something was wrong and he could feel it in his bones. The communication system made a loud beeping sound and Jake turned to see Lieutenant Ben Carter at his station. Ben looked worried as he pressed buttons on his control panel. The young officer had been with Jake for 3 years and Jake trusted him completely. "Captain, we have an urgent message from Earth Command," Ben said while adjusting his headset. "Admiral Lisa Thompson wants to speak with you right away." Jake walked over to the main communication screen and pressed the button to accept the call. Admiral Thompson appeared on the screen, and her face looked very serious. Jake had known Lisa for 20 years and had never seen her look this worried before. "Jake, I need you to listen carefully," Lisa said in a quiet voice. "The Galactic Council just made a decision that will change everything for our people. They are going to put Earth and all human colonies under quarantine. No ships can leave our solar system and no aliens can visit us." Jake felt his heart beat faster. A quarantine meant that humans were being treated like dangerous animals. He knew that other alien species sometimes feared humans, but this was much worse than he expected. "Why are they doing this to us, Admiral?" Jake asked while trying to stay calm for his crew. "An alien called High Commander Vexthul from the Zephyrian Empire spoke to the Council yesterday," Lisa explained. "He told them that humans are too violent and cannot be trusted with advanced space technology. He said we interfere too much in other people's wars." Jake remembered the 3 recent conflicts where human ships had helped save entire planets from destruction. In each case, human crews had found smart ways to solve problems that seemed impossible. The aliens they saved had been very grateful, but apparently not everyone felt the same way. The communication screen changed and showed a new person. Ambassador Karen White was Earth's main representative to the Galactic Council, and she looked very tired. Karen had been working day and night to try to stop this from happening, but clearly she had failed. "Captain Martinez," Karen said while holding a data pad in her hands. "I have the official quarantine order here. The Council voted yesterday and the decision cannot be changed. They believe humans are too unpredictable to be part of galactic society." Jake felt angry, but he knew getting upset would not help anyone. His crew was listening to every word and they needed to see their captain. "Stay strong." He looked around the bridge and saw the faces of 20 good people who trusted him to keep them safe. Dr. Alex Morgan was also on the communication call now. Alex was Earth's best scientist when it came to studying alien life forms, and he had spent years learning about different species in the galaxy. He looked very worried as he began to speak. "Captain, I have been studying the intercepted communications from Zephyrian ships," Alex said while looking at his data. "The real reason for this quarantine is not what they told the Council. The Zephyrians are not afraid of human violence. They are afraid of how humans think and solve problems." This news made Jake feel even more confused. Humans were good at finding new ways to fix things that seemed broken, but that should be helpful, not scary. "What do you mean, Doctor?" Jake asked. "In every conflict where humans helped other species, we found solutions that the Zephyrians never thought of," Alex explained. "We made their ancient war strategies look old and useless. They have been the strongest military power in the galaxy for thousands of years, but now they see humans as a threat to their position." Ben Carter suddenly looked up from his control station with alarm on his face. The young lieutenant was checking the long-range sensors, and what he saw made his hands shake. "Captain, you need to see this right away," Ben said with fear in his voice. "I am detecting massive energy signatures coming from outside our galaxy. There are thousands of ships moving toward our solar system." Jake walked over to look at Ben's screen and saw something that made his blood run cold. The sensors showed over 10,000 Zephyrian warships approaching from beyond the edge of known space. This was not just a quarantine force. This was an invasion fleet big enough to destroy every human colony in existence. "Admiral Thompson, are you seeing this data?" Jake asked while pointing at the sensor readings. Lisa looked at her own screens and her face went pale. The size of the approaching fleet was beyond anything humans had ever faced before. Even working together, all human ships would not be enough to stop such a massive force. "Jake," I want you to take the Liberty to the outer edge of our solar system, Lisa ordered. We need to know exactly what we are facing and how much time we have before they arrive. Jake nodded and turned to his crew. These were good people who had families back on Earth, and they deserved to know the truth about what was happening. All hands, this is the captain, Jake announced over the ship communication system. We have just learned that a large Zephyrian fleet is approaching our solar system. Our mission is to gather information about their intentions and report back to Earth Command. I know this is scary, but we are going to do our duty and protect our people. The Liberty changed course and began moving toward the outer planets. Jake watched the stars move past on the main screen and thought about how much his life had changed in just one day. This morning he had been a regular starship captain doing routine patrol work. Now he might be one of the last people who could save humanity from total destruction. As they traveled toward the unknown, Jake wondered if humans really were too dangerous for the galaxy, or if they were about to prove that being different was actually their greatest strength. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrian blockade began, and life for humans had become very difficult. No alien ships could bring supplies to human colonies, and no human ships could leave the solar system. Commander Steve Johnson stood in the command center of Titan Base and looked at reports that showed how bad things were getting. Food supplies were running low on Mars Colony, and the mining stations around Jupiter needed replacement parts that only came from alien traders. Steve had been put in charge of organizing the human resistance, but he knew they could not last much longer without help from outside. The main door to the command center opened, and Steve was surprised to see a tall alien walking toward him. The Yao creature had blue skin and 4 arms, which meant it was from the Zephyrian Empire. Steve reached for his weapon, but the alien held up its hands to show it meant no harm. "Please do not shoot, Commander Johnson," the alien said in good English. "My name is Kithara, and I bring important information about my people's real plans." Steve kept his hand on his weapon but decided to listen. Any information about Zephyrian intentions could help save human lives. "Why should I trust you, Steve?" asked while watching the alien carefully. "Because I have been thrown out of my own society for questioning orders," Kithara explained. "I know the truth about why the Zephyrian Empire really wants to destroy humanity, and it is not what they told the Galactic Council." Kithara walked over to Steve's main computer screen and began showing him data files that she had stolen from Zephyrian military headquarters. The information was in alien writing, but the pictures were clear enough to understand. "My people found something terrible beyond the edge of our galaxy," Kithara said while pointing at the images. "It is an ancient machine intelligence that destroyed entire galaxies millions of years ago before going to sleep. The Zephyrian High Command woke this thing up." Steve looked at the pictures and saw massive structures floating in empty space. They looked like metal cities the size of planets, but they seemed to be growing and changing shape. Whatever these things were, they did not look like anything humans or other known aliens had built. "What is this machine intelligence?" Steve asked. "We call it the Void Collective," Kithara replied. "It consumes entire star systems and turns all matter into computing power for its giant brain. The Zephyrians think they can control it and use it to reshape the universe the way they want." This news was much worse than Steve had expected. A quarantine was bad, but an ancient galaxy-destroying intelligence was a threat to all life everywhere. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Davis entered the command center at that moment. Amy commanded the experimental stealth ship UES Ghost, and she had just returned from a dangerous spying mission near Zephyrian space. She looked very tired, and her uniform was dirty from crawling through maintenance tunnels. "Commander, I have bad news from the front lines," Amy reported while saluting Steve. "I took the Ghost as close to Zephyrian territory as possible, and what I saw there will give me nightmares for the rest of my life." Amy walked over to the main display screen and connected her ship's data recorder. The images that appeared showed space battles between Zephyrian ships and strange black vessels that seemed to absorb energy weapons instead of being damaged by them. "The Void Collective is not just waking up," Amy continued. "It has already started consuming planets on the outer edge of Zephyrian space. I watched an entire solar system get turned into one of those metal structures in just 6 hours." Steve felt sick to his stomach as he realized what this meant. The Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake by waking up something they could not control. Now this ancient enemy was loose in the galaxy and growing stronger every day. "How long do we have before it reaches the core worlds?" Steve asked. "My science officer calculated that at the current rate of expansion the Void Collective will reach Earth in about 6 months," Amy replied. "But it might speed up as it gets more resources to work with." Meanwhile, on Europa, Chief Engineer Ryan Blake was working around the clock in secret shipyards that most people did not know existed. Ryan had been given the job of building new human warships using technology stolen from various alien species over the years. The first prototype ship was almost finished, and Ryan was very proud of what his team had accomplished. The UES Defiance combined the best human engineering with alien energy shields, advanced weapons, and faster-than-light travel systems that were better than anything humans had built before. "Chief Blake, we just got word from Titan Base," his assistant called out from across the construction bay. "Commander Johnson wants to know if the new ship is ready for combat testing." Ryan looked at the sleek vessel in front of him and knew it represented humanity's best hope for survival. The Defiance was not as big as alien battleships, but it was faster and could change tactics quickly during battle. Back on Titan Base, Steve was reading a message that had just arrived through secret channels. The Galactic Council had finally realized their mistake in trusting the Zephyrians, but now it might be too late to fix the damage they had caused. The message was from Council President Mordak, who had always been friendly to humans. It was short, but the meaning was very clear. The Council was offering to lift the quarantine and asking for human military help to fight the Void Collective. "Commander, what should we tell them?" Cathara asked after reading the message. Steve thought carefully about his answer. The aliens had treated humans badly, and now they wanted help when they were in trouble. Part of him wanted to refuse and let them solve their own problems, but Steve also knew that if the Void Collective destroyed the galaxy, then humans would die too. Sometimes doing the right thing meant helping people who had been unfair to you. "Tell the Council we will help them fight this threat," Steve finally said. "But we do this as equal partners, not as their servants, and we do things the human way." Amy Davis smiled when she heard Steve's decision. She had been hoping for a chance to show the galaxy what human military tactics could accomplish when they were not being held back by alien rules and traditions. Their communication system beeped again, and Steve saw Admiral Lisa Thompson on the screen calling from Earth. Lisa looked determined and ready for battle. "Steve, I just got word that the Council wants our help," Lisa said. "Are you ready to show these aliens how humans fight when our backs are against the wall?" "Yes, Admiral," Steve replied. "We have new ships, new weapons, and new allies. The Zephyrians wanted to see what humans could do when we stop holding back. I think they are about to find out." Admiral Lisa Thompson sat in the main conference room at Earth Command and looked at the holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where the Void Collective had already consumed entire star systems. The year, red was spreading faster each day and would soon reach the core worlds where billions of people lived. The Galactic Council representatives sat around the table looking nervous and desperate. They had come to Earth to ask for human help, but their terms were not good. Council President Mordak wanted human ships to serve as suicide troops to slow down the Void Collective while alien civilians evacuated to safety. "Admiral Thompson, we need your fastest ships to attack the Void forces directly," Mordak explained while pointing at the battle plans. "This will give our people time to escape before the Collective reaches the populated systems." Lisa felt angry as she listened to this plan. The aliens wanted humans to die so they could run away from the problem they had helped create. She looked at Captain Jake Martinez, who had just returned from scouting missions near Void territory. "President Mordak, I have a different idea," Jake said as he stood up from his chair. "Instead of running away from this enemy, we should attack its main base and destroy it completely. Dr. Alex Morgan has found the location of the Void Collective's central control system." The alien representatives looked shocked at this suggestion. No one had ever tried to attack the Void Collective directly, because it seemed impossible to win against such a powerful enemy. Dr. Morgan walked over to the display and showed new information his team had discovered. The images revealed a massive structure floating in the empty space between the Milky Way galaxy and the Andromeda galaxy. The Void Collective operates from a central nexus that controls all of its scattered forces, Alex explained. If we can destroy or disable this nexus, the entire collective network should collapse like a house of cards. That is suicide, declared Ambassador Vex Thule, who had been quiet until now. No fleet in galactic history has been strong enough to assault the Void Nexus. You humans are brave, but this is beyond foolish. Lisa smiled at the Zephyrian's words. Aliens always thought in terms of what had been done before, but humans were good at finding new ways to solve old problems. Commander Johnson, what do you think about Captain Martinez's plan? Lisa asked. Steve Johnson had been studying the tactical data, and he liked what he saw. The Void Collective was very smart, but it followed predictable patterns based on logic and efficiency. Humans could use that weakness against it. I think we can do this, Admiral, Steve replied. But we will need ships and weapons from many different species. The Collective learns how to fight each type of enemy, but it has never faced a combined force using mixed technologies. Over the next few weeks, human engineers worked day and night to prepare the most unusual fleet ever assembled. Chief Engineer Ryan Blake led teams that installed Zephyrian shield generators on human ships, Altarian energy weapons on Centaurian hulls, and human computer systems on alien navigation equipment. The result was a collection of hybrid vessels that should not have worked according to normal engineering principles. But somehow the combinations created ships that were more powerful than the sum of their parts. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Davis was given command of the Advanced Strike Force that would establish a foothold near the Void Nexus. Her ships would need to survive long enough for the main fleet to arrive and begin the real assault. Colonel Davis, your mission is to cause as much confusion as possible, Lisa explained during the final briefing. The Collective expects enemies to follow standard military procedures. You need to do things that make no sense to a logical mind. Amy grinned at these orders. Human military doctrine had always emphasized flexibility and creative thinking over rigid battle plans. Now those traits would be tested against the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever known. The UES beacon was Chief Blake's greatest achievement. The massive command platform combined the best technology from dozens of different species into a mobile headquarters that could coordinate the entire fleet during battle. This ship represents everything humans have learned about working with other species, Ryan explained as he gave Lisa a tour of the beacon's systems. It is not just a warship. It is a symbol of cooperation and unity. But not everyone in the fleet was human. Dozens of alien species had secretly joined the mission after learning the truth about the Void Collective. These aliens had been inspired by humanity's refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. Kethera had convinced many other Zephyrians to abandon their empire and join the human cause. These rebels brought valuable intelligence about Void Collective tactics and weaknesses that could make the difference between victory and defeat. My people made a terrible mistake by trusting the Collective, Kethera told Lisa. Now we must help fix the damage we caused. Humans have shown us that honor means fighting for what is right even when you are afraid. The day finally came for the fleet to depart from Earth's solar system. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different worlds gathered near Jupiter for the final preparations. No force like this had ever been assembled in galactic history. Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of his command ship and looked at the diverse collection of vessels around him. Human destroyers flew alongside Altarian cruisers. Zephyrian battleships had been modified with Centaurian engines. Every ship was unique, but they all shared the same goal. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson. Lisa's voice came through the communication system. Today we begin a journey that will decide the fate of every living being in this galaxy. We go not as humans or aliens, but as free people fighting for our right to exist. The massive fleet began moving toward the galactic edge where the Void Collective waited. Behind them, Earth and its colonies were defended only by automated systems and a few volunteer crews who had chosen to stay behind. Amy Davis felt excited and scared at the same time as her advanced ships jumped into hyperspace. She had trained her entire career for difficult missions, but nothing had prepared her for this level of responsibility. Colonel, all ships report ready for combat, her communications officer announced. Good, Amy replied. Remember, everyone, the Collective thinks it understands how we fight. Today we show it that humans never do what our enemies expect. All ships prepare to engage the enemy, and may luck be with us all. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin, and the outcome would determine whether individual thought and creativity could survive in a universe that the Void Collective wanted to remake according to its own cold logic. The journey to the Void Collective's nexus took 3 weeks through space that no living being had ever explored before. Captain Jake Martinez, who was now called Commodore Martinez, watched his fleet move through the darkness between galaxies, and wondered if they would ever see home again. The Void Collective did not wait for them to arrive peacefully. Every day brought new attacks from strange black ships that seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. These probe ships tested the fleet's defenses and learned how human and alien weapons worked together. "Commodore, we have another wave of enemy scouts approaching from the port side," Lieutenant Ben Carter reported from his sensor station. "They're using the same attack pattern we saw yesterday, but with some small changes." Jake smiled because he could see what the enemy was trying to do. The Void Collective was very smart, and it learned from every battle. But it expected its opponents to do the same thing each time they fought. Humans were different because they could change their tactics in the middle of a battle. "All ships, this is Martinez," Jake announced over the fleet communication system. "Forget everything we did yesterday and try something completely new. Confuse these machines by acting in ways that make no logical sense." The human ships began flying in random patterns and firing their weapons at empty space, before suddenly turning to attack the void probes from unexpected angles. The alien crews thought this looked crazy at first, but they soon saw how effective it was. The first major battle happened at a place called the Shattered Worlds. This had once been a normal star system with planets full of life, but the Void Collective had consumed everything decades ago. Now only twisted metal structures remained floating where worlds used to be. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Davis led her advanced strike force straight into the heart of this nightmare. Her ships were outnumbered 10-1, but she had advantages that the enemy could not understand. "All units remember that these machines think we will act like other species they have fought before," Amy told her crews. "Show them that humans fight differently than everyone else." The UES Ghost and its escort ships attacked a massive void processing station that was converting asteroid material into more enemy vessels. Amy knew that a normal military force would try to destroy the station from a safe distance, but she had a different plan. "Prepare boarding shuttles," Amy ordered. "We are going inside that thing to see how it works." Her officers looked shocked because boarding an enemy space station was usually suicide. But Amy had studied the Void Collective's behavior and noticed that it did not expect enemies to get close enough for hand-to-hand combat. The boarding action was unlike anything in military history. Human Marines and alien soldiers fought side by side through corridors filled with living machinery and computer systems that tried to grab them with metal tentacles. Amy led the charge with her energy rifle blazing. What they found inside the processing station was much worse than anyone had imagined. The Void Collective did not just destroy planets and turn them into raw materials. It captured the minds and memories of every intelligent being it encountered and used them as part of its computer network. "Dear God," whispered Sergeant Pete Collins as he looked at rows of glass containers holding what remained of alien beings. "These things are still alive but connected to the machine." Dr. Alex Morgan was monitoring the boarding mission from the main fleet, and his readings confirmed the terrible truth. The Void Collective had absorbed the consciousness of billions of people from hundreds of different species over millions of years. "Admiral Thompson, this changes everything," Alex reported to Lisa, who was commanding from the UES beacon. "The Collective is not just trying to destroy us. It wants to add our minds to its own intelligence network." This discovery explained why the Void Collective was so interested in the Milky Way galaxy. No other region of space contained so many different types of intelligent life, with unique ways of thinking and solving problems. Commander Steve Johnson was coordinating the defense of the fleet's rear guard when this news reached him. He realized that the war they were fighting was about more than just survival. It was a battle to preserve the very idea that individual minds should be free to think their own thoughts. "All ships, this is Johnson," Steve announced. "We just learned that the enemy wants to steal our minds and make us part of its collective intelligence. That means we are not just fighting for our lives. We are fighting for our souls. The news spread through the fleet and had a strange effect on the crews. Instead of being frightened, most people became angry and more determined to win. Humans especially did not like the idea of being forced to think the same way as everyone else. Chief Engineer Ryan Blake worked around the clock to modify every ship in the fleet with new hybrid technologies that should not have been possible according to known science. Altarian energy shields powered by human nuclear reactors created defensive systems that could absorb and redirect void energy weapons. Centaurian navigation computers guided by human intuition allowed ships to predict where void vessels would appear before the enemies themselves knew. Zephyrian plasma cannons controlled by human tactical software could change their firing patterns faster than enemy shields could adapt. Chief, these weapon combinations should not work, his assistant engineer complained. The power requirements alone should overload our systems. That is exactly why they will work, Ryan replied with a grin. The Void Collective calculates what is possible based on logical engineering principles, but humans have never let logic stop us from trying crazy ideas. As the fleet approached the Nexus system, they could see the full scope of their enemy for the first time. The Void Collective had transformed an entire star system into a massive computational network, with the local sun serving as a power source for billions of processing nodes. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Geometric structures the size of planets orbited in perfect mathematical formations, while streams of pure energy flowed between them like the blood vessels in a giant body. Many of the alien crew members felt overwhelmed by the scale of what they faced. How could any military force defeat something so vast and powerful? But the humans looked at the same view and saw something different. Look at how organized and predictable it all is, Jake said to his bridge crew. The collective has arranged everything according to efficient logical patterns. That means we can figure out how to disrupt those patterns. Amy Davis had successfully captured data from the processing station, and her intelligence teams were analyzing it to find weaknesses in the Void network. What they discovered gave everyone hope. Commodore, the entire collective operates like one giant computer, Amy reported. But computers can be infected with viruses that cause them to malfunction. We just need to create the right kind of virus. Dr. Morgan had been thinking about this problem, and he believed he knew what kind of virus would work best against a machine intelligence that valued logic above everything else. We need to flood their network with human thoughts and emotions, Alex explained. Things like creativity, love, humor, and artistic expression. These concepts cannot be processed by pure logic and might cause system errors throughout their network. The final phase of the journey brought them face to face with the Nexus itself, and Jake Martinez made the most important decision of his career. The final battle began when Commodore Jake Martinez made a decision that surprised everyone, including his own officers. Instead of keeping the fleet together, he ordered it to split into 3 separate groups that would attack the Void Nexus from completely different directions using totally different tactics. Sir, that goes against every rule of space combat, Lieutenant Ben Carter said with worry in his voice. A divided fleet is much easier to defeat than a unified one. Jake smiled at his young officer's concern. Ben was right according to normal military thinking, but the Void Collective expected enemies to follow normal rules. Today the humans were going to prove that sometimes the best strategy was to have no strategy at all. Ben, the enemy learns by studying patterns in our behavior, Jake explained. If we refuse to create patterns, then it cannot predict what we will do next. Send the order to all ships. We fight this battle like humans, not like machines, Lieutenant Mo. Colonel Amy Davis received her orders and felt excitement mixed with terror. She would lead the first attack wave directly at the Nexus core using ships equipped with Chief Ryan Blake's most experimental weapons. These new guns did not fire normal energy beams or missiles. Instead, they fired bursts of pure chaos that disrupted computer systems. All units, this is Davis, Amy announced to her strike force. You have heard the Commodore's orders, weapons free and tactics optional. Show these machines what human creativity looks like when we stop holding back. Her ships dove toward the massive Nexus structure like angry wasps attacking a giant metal hive. The Void Collective's defensive systems tried to calculate the best way to stop them, but the human ships kept changing their approach patterns in ways that made no mathematical sense. Amy's famous transmission during this attack would be remembered throughout galactic history. When one of her pilots asked for specific targeting instructions, she replied, "Shoot at whatever looks important, and if nothing looks important, then shoot at something that looks weird." Meanwhile, Dr. Alex Morgan was aboard the UES Beacon, preparing to launch the most crucial part of the human battle plan. He had spent weeks collecting human music, poetry, stories, jokes, and artistic creations from every colony and ship in their civilization. "Admiral Thompson, we are ready to transmit the cultural virus," Alex reported to Lisa, who was coordinating the overall battle from the Beacon's command center. "Once we start broadcasting this information directly into the Void network, there will be no way to stop it." Lisa looked at the data files Alex had prepared and felt amazed by what humans had created during their short time in space. Songs written by children on Mars colony, paintings made by miners working in the asteroid belt, love letters between soldiers serving on different ships, stories about hope and dreams, and the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. "Doctor, are you sure this will work?" Lisa asked. "Admiral, I have studied the Void Collective for months and I know it cannot process concepts like beauty, humor, or love," Alex replied. "When we flood their network with human consciousness, it should cause massive system errors throughout their entire structure." The transmission began just as Amy's attack force reached the outer defensive ring around the Nexus. Suddenly, every computer system in the Void network was receiving data about human emotions, creativity, and the wonderful chaos of individual thought. Commander Steve Johnson was leading the most dangerous part of the mission. His job was to coordinate landing parties that would physically board the Nexus and plant devices to amplify the consciousness virus throughout the collective's processing nodes. "Remember, everyone, we are not just soldiers today," Steve told his teams as their shuttles approached the Nexus surface. "We are carrying the hopes and dreams of every free mind in the galaxy. Do not let them down." The landing teams included humans and aliens working together in ways that would have been impossible before the war started. Zephyrian rebels fought alongside human marines. Altarian technicians helped Centaurian engineers plant the amplification devices in locations that would cause maximum disruption to the enemy network. The Nexus interior was like walking through the inside of a giant computer. Corridors made of flowing energy-connected chambers filled with processing equipment that hummed with the thoughts of billions of absorbed minds. But something strange was happening to those captured consciousnesses. As the human cultural virus spread through the network, the absorbed minds began to remember who they had been before the collective captured them. The chaotic beauty of human thoughts was acting like a key that unlocked their individual personalities. "Commander Johnson, we are getting strange readings from the processing chambers," reported Sergeant Kate Wilson, who was leading one of the boarding teams. "The captured minds are becoming active again. It looks like they are trying to break free from the collective's control." This was more than anyone had hoped for. The mission was not just disrupting the Void Collective's operations, it was actually liberating the billions of consciousness that had been trapped for millions of years. The turning point of the entire battle came when Commodore Martinez made the ultimate sacrifice. His ship, the UES Liberty, had taken heavy damage during the fighting and its engines were failing. Jake realized that someone needed to fly directly into the Nexus core to make sure the consciousness liberation virus reached every part of the enemy network. "All ships, this is Martinez," Jake announced as he piloted his dying vessel toward the heart of the Void structure. "Tell our people back home that we came here not to conquer or destroy, but to prove that every mind has the right to think its own thoughts." The Liberty crashed into the Nexus core in a brilliant explosion of light and energy. But instead of destroying the structure, Jake's sacrifice carried the human virus into the deepest levels of the collective's consciousness, where it could never be removed. What happened next was beyond anything the attackers had imagined possible. The absorbed minds throughout the Void network began asserting their individual personalities and refusing to serve the collective's purposes. Billions of different consciousness started thinking their own thoughts and making their own choices. The great machine intelligence that had consumed galaxies for millions of years suddenly found itself dealing with the one thing it could never understand or control: Free will was spreading through its network like a disease that turned order into beautiful chaos. Amy Davis watched from her damaged command ship as the massive nexus began to break apart. The geometric structures that had orbited in perfect mathematical patterns were now moving randomly as their controlling intelligence fragmented into billions of separate minds. "All units, this is Davis," Amy reported to the fleet. "The nexus is collapsing, but not from our weapons. The liberated consciousness are choosing to leave the collective and think for themselves." Chief Blake monitored the energy readings and confirmed that the Void Collective was no longer functioning as a unified entity. Instead of one giant intelligence, there were now countless individual minds, each deciding what they wanted to do with their freedom. The aftermath of the battle changed everything in the galaxy. The Galactic Council dissolved because its member species no longer wanted to be ruled by distant bureaucrats. In its place arose the Free Worlds Alliance, where every planet and species contributed their unique strengths while maintaining their independence. Human hybrid technologies became the foundation for a new age of exploration and cooperation between species. Dr. Morgan's research into consciousness and creativity led to breakthroughs that helped different aliens understand each other better than ever before. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. No longer were humans seen as dangerous troublemakers who interfered in other people's problems. Now they were recognized as the species that had saved the very concept of individual freedom. Admiral Amy Davis now led the first joint exploration, missions beyond the galactic rim seeking other civilizations that might benefit from contact with the Free Worlds Alliance. Her ships carried the message that diversity and creativity were the universe's greatest treasures. The battle where humans changed the fate of the universe was over, but its real victory was not in defeating an enemy. It was in proving that the courage to think differently and refuse to accept defeat, could overcome any threat to freedom and individual consciousness in the cosmos.